all in the middle of a wonderful book right now. Today I'm going to be sharing my top 10 series that I can reread over and over again. While most of these series are always on the list, the exact placement changes from time to time. However, they're all wonderful and I recommend each one. So let's get into it. Coming in at spot 10 is The Wrath and the Dawn duology by Renee Ahdieh. When Shahrazad's best friend is the latest in a series of wives killed by the Caliph of Khorasan, Shahzi sets out to avenge her friend and kill him. But first, she must stay alive for more than one night. While trying to prevent her death, Shahzi learns that Khalid is not the terrible monster he's made out to be, and he and the country are fighting monsters unseen by most. So honestly, this series is mainly on the list right now because it's one of my current faves, but that's mostly because I read it recently. The 10th spot on this list rotates a lot depending on what I've read, and once the sequels to some books I've read recently come out in September, it'll definitely change. Next up is the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. When Jude was 7, her adoptive father killed her parents and stole her and her sisters back to fairyland. Now one of the few humans in the land, Jude is outcast and mocked. But no one is as bad as Prince Cardan, yet she finds herself unable to get away from him and trapped in a fight over the throne. So Jude is a badass main character who doesn't let people get away with treating her poorly just because they think they can, which I find really inspiring. Overall, the world that Holly Black creates is explained really well, and while there's nothing extremely unique about it, it's fun and interesting and easy to understand. A lot of the twists in this series were either unexpected or expected in a way that made them fun to discover while reading. And this is the one of the series I find myself drawn to when I'm either in a reading slump or just overwhelmed with the size of my to-read list. My next favorite series is The Selection by Kiera Cass, specifically the first trilogy. America unexpectedly gets selected to compete against 34 other girls for the prince's heart in a bachelor-style event. In a world where society is divided into castes that decide career and status, America is the lowest caste in the competition. As she struggles to decide where her heart lies, America tries to confront the inequality she faces. I absolutely love how the main character grows throughout the trilogy, which is one of my favorite things to experience in a series. I also really like how politics manages to find its way into a romance series without feeling out of place. It never takes over the story, but interweaves itself in between the romance. As with the Folk of the Air series, this is a series I tend to gravitate towards when I'm struggling to find something to read, or I just need something lighthearted that I already know I love. Now onto the longest series on this list, at least page-wise, coming in at a whopping 7 books, the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. When Selena is rescued from the salt mines of Endovier to compete as Prince Dorian's champion in a competition to find the new royal assassin, she must prove herself time and time again. Then, other champions start to show up dead, and nobody can seem to figure out why. At the same time, Selena is hiding secrets from those around her. The romance in this series is almost unparalleled in my opinion, and is so much fun to follow throughout all the books. It's hard to pick a favorite couple. And just like many of my favorite series, the main character is a kick-ass female who doesn't let anybody tell her what to do and is more than capable of taking care of herself. And the character growth is incredible for all of the characters. I also really like that one of the main villains is female, because I feel like that's not super common. This series has plot twists coming at you from every angle, and it's impossible to predict all of them, but so much fun to try. It's hard to say a lot about this series without giving spoilers, but you definitely need to check it out. Next up is a series I'm not going to spend too much time on because everybody already knows it so well, Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. Harry finds out that he's a wizard and will be attending Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He meets new friends and has to stand up against somebody the wizarding world thought was gone. This was probably one of the briefest and worst descriptions of the series, but if you don't already know about it, then you must have been living under a rock for the past 20 years. I've been reading this series since I was in 1st grade, and I love it more each time. Every time I find something new and relatable, and it's one of my go-tos when I'm in a reading slump. If you haven't already read this series, you need to. All I need to say. Okay, we're halfway through. Spot 5 is occupied by The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare. Right before Clary turns 16, she finds out that she's actually a Shadowhunter, a group of half-angel, half-humans meant to rid the world of demons. The world is also filled with half-demon downworlders, who are fairies, vampires, werewolves, and warlocks. When her mother is kidnapped, she must rely on these new people to help find her, and at the same time, find her place in this world. The whole Shadowhunter world created by Cassandra Clare is unlike any fantasy world I've read before. It's just so creative, intricate, and intriguing, and it's explained well throughout the series with no information dumps or points where I felt like I was lacking needed information. One of my favorite things about this series is the friendships, especially between Clary and Simon. My best friend is a guy, and it can be hard to find representation of a close friendship between a guy and a girl in a book, so I really appreciate that in this series. The romance in this series takes you on a roller coaster ride, and I find my heart racing each time I read it, even though I already know what happens. I've reread this series probably 4 times since I first read it 3 years ago, and I know that's not going to stop anytime soon. Now we're getting into my absolute all-time favorite set of series. Starting that off is The Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. A group of 6 somewhat friends embark on a journey to pull off a seemingly impossible heist, but each are dealing with their own separate subplots. So I have to thank my best friend for convincing me to read the series because he's been begging me to do it for years, and I'm so glad I finally did. This duology has been one of my all-time favorite found families because although each character is really different, they acknowledge and accept each other's differences and are incredibly supportive of each other. It also has a representation of characters who aren't entirely good or evil, which makes them more realistic, and I absolutely love a good set of morally ambiguous characters. Romance is largely on the back burner in favor of action in this series, which normally isn't my favorite, but I think it works really well. And by the end of the series, you can see just how much each character has grown, which is amazing. I should mention that this author has another series that I really like, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which is actually set in the same world 2 years before the Six of Crows duology. Reading the Six of Crows duology first will give you a small spoiler for the Shadow and Bone series, but it's not major. I actually read it this way and was fine, but if you're especially annoyed or angered by spoilers, then you probably want to read it the other way around. My third favorite series is The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. Tessa arrives in London in 1878 to find her brother, and she learns about the world of the Shadowhunters. She then has to work with the London Institute to find and stop the Pandemonium Club, which they know nothing about. This is my all-time favorite love triangle, and it's the only one where I really struggle to pick the guy I like best. As somebody who's obsessed with love triangles, that's saying something. The series also has a great mix of danger and romance with character growth of basically everybody. While there's less of the downworld than the other series in this world, I don't think it adds or detracts from the books. To show how much I love this series, I'm telling you guys that it's one of the few books that can make me cry. And controversial, I know, but I actually prefer the Dark Artifices to the Infernal Devices. 5 years after the Mortal War has ended, Emma and Julian are trying to take care of their family while dealing with the Groman demon problem in LA. At the same time, Julian's brother Mark has returned after being kidnapped by fairies and is trying to adapt to a world he no longer knows. However, he's only allowed to stay with his family if they complete this task given by the fairies. Like many of my favorite series, romance is a main plot point, and it works really well with everything else that's happening. And just like with all of Cassandra Clare's novels, the world building is extremely well done and creative. The series explores themes of family, both the kind you're born with and the kind you choose, and it focuses more on politics than other series in this world, especially the theme of what happens when doing what you believe is right goes against your duty to your government. Again, this is one of the few books that can make me truly cry. Coming in at the very top of this list is A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. When she kills a fae disguised as a wolf, Feyre is taken away from her family to the land of the fae, who she has been taught to hate and fear. She must learn to survive in this new place while trying to stop the infection that is slowly stripping the land's magic. The first book in this series is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast that's subtle but well done. The next books lose the fairy tale retelling, but it doesn't affect how great they are. The series just gets better and better as it goes on, and I'm super excited for A Court of Silver Flames coming out in January. Feyre is a strong female who learns just how much she's capable of throughout the series, and many of the other characters also experience a lot of growth by the end. I even read the novella A Court of Frost and Starlight, which I don't think I've ever done before, and while I know a lot of people didn't like it because not a lot happened, I like the simplicity of it. So that's it, my top 10 series. As I said before, the rankings aren't set in stone. They tend to change a bit depending on what I've read most recently and how I feel at a particular time. I hope this gave you some books to put on your to-read list, and if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time!